Greetings. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. For those of you new to Celebration, this is a series that likes to look at people and their cultures and try to get a better understanding of the same. And in this pursuit, of course, we'll, in some instances, cover some familiar turf, but we also hope to uncover some interesting information not generally known, although the information is probably generally available. Now, to this end, we are certainly not afraid to gravitate toward little-known sources and small pamphlets and whatnot in search of this information, because it is fact, law, truth that we are interested in, and not a glossy facade. Now, in this particular series, we are looking at Jews and their culture, and this is our second episode. The first episode we looked at this interesting connection in regard to the term Jew. As mentioned in that episode, the term Jew is relatively new. It's first appeared in the English language about 300 years ago, and the term appears in the Bible rather deep into the book, appearing in Kings, and we did look at this, the origins and so forth. And as such, we looked at this line, which we think has a high probability of belonging to what we know as Jews today, or at least an important segment thereof. This is the line which originated with Judah and his Canaanite wife Shua, and their son Shelah, their surviving son Shelah, and we pursued this line to the Jews of Elath, and we noted that King Rezin and King Pekah had gone forward against this group, and we have speculated, since the word Canaanite, I think in Strong's Concordance, bears the import of merchant or trader. At any rate, it was assumed that they were probably port or urban dwellers, and that under this situation, one in which the high walls of Jerusalem prevailed against the attacking King Rezin and Pekah. King Pekah, the men, the Jews of Elath, probably, at least in part, sought out Jerusalem as a safety. We see them as not being part of the congregation of the kingdom of Judah, that is, as not being children of the promise because of the Canaanite line through Shua, but they were, in a sense, relatives, and under the perils of attack from King Rezin and King Pekah, it may well be that any able-bodied man would be welcomed, and we think that there's a good probability, therefore, that the Jews of Elath migrated to Jerusalem at this point in time for safety. We think after that they probably, for the most part, made a home there, married the locals, produced their own children, of course, and basically blended in to the population. Now, today we want to look at another interesting line, and that is the line relating to Esau. We see this particular line eventually merging with the line which we speculate exists from Judah-Sura, therefore, let us proceed on this particular basis. Now, as you know, I'm sure that Esau was one of the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah, that his brother was Jacob, that the birthright and blessings and so forth were lost by Esau to Jacob. This was, of course, God's doings, working through Rebekah, the mother. It was the mother, Rebekah, who was the clever one. Jacob, Israel, was something of, appears to be something of a little on the weak side. And he was fearful of his brother, perhaps for good reason. His brother seems to have been a strong fellow, avid hunter and so forth, and maybe a little intimidating to Jacob. But at any rate, with the help of Mom, he did receive from Isaac through deception the blessings, the promises of the inheritance, and so forth. And this generated animosity on the part of Esau, an animosity which seems to have been given as a role almost in a great drama of the Lord God Almighty. But at any rate, let's take a little look at this from the point of view of citation to get well grounded. Esau married the daughters of Canaan or Canaanites, Genesis 28:6, 36:2. The daughters of Heth or Hittites, Genesis 26:34, 27:46, 36:2. The daughters of Ishmael, Genesis 28:9, 36:3. The daughters of the Hivites, Genesis 36:2, and had intermarried with the Horites, Genesis 36:19, 20 through 21, Joshua 30:28. These interracial marriages were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. Esau's parents, Genesis 26:35. The descendants of Esau from these marriages became known as Edomites or as Edom, Genesis 36:1-9. Now this is a citation from Who is Esau Edom by Charles A. Wiseman, page 5. Additionally, and in the same vein, please note, Esau and his descendants were not and are not the seed of the promise, as in Isaac shall thy seed be called. All of Esau's marriages were mixed, and his offspring were bastards. And in Malachi, God stated, And I hated Esau, whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Malachi 1:3-4. See also Romans 9:13. This is a citation from Who are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are they Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, page 33. And so we see that Esau, although in the direct line of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, he nevertheless despised his birthright. In fact, I believe the Bible actually used the word despised. He was not a totally repellent kind of fellow. He did have some good qualities and whatnot. But he was basically unrighteous and unworthy, I suppose, from the point of view of the Lord Almighty for the lineage that he had proposed to have. So at any rate, we see Esau quickly losing himself, as it were, amidst the other people. I think that anyone who was not of the line of the children of the promise, so to speak, are referred to as bastards, other nations, aliens, and strangers, and so forth like this. Here, Wiseman used the word race, but I think that that's not altogether appropriate. Esau and the Edomites dwelt in Mount Seir, Genesis 36, 8, and 9, which God gave to Esau for a possession, Deuteronomy 2, 5, Joshua 24, 4. This land was also known as Idumea, Isaiah 34, 6. The land of Edom, Mount Seir, lies south of the Dead Sea, stretching south to its seaport at Elath, Deuteronomy 1, 2, 2, 1, 8, and included the ravine known as Petra. As we had noted already, Elath was adjacent to Edom, was part of Old Edom, and therefore the Jews of Elath were in close proximity to Edom, and it's reasonable to assume that Edom, to a certain extent, intermarried with the Jews of Elath, who we propose or speculate to be of the line of Judah-Sura, and we have noted that in this line are Carmi and Achar, who is also known as the troubler of Israel. Now, some of these people, these Edomites, who we think surely intermarried with the Jews of Elath, moved to Jerusalem during this period of problems with the Babylonians, King Rezin and King Pekah, the house of Israel. So we do think that besides the Jews of Elath, we do have some Edomite migration to Jerusalem at this time. Well, let's get back to a citation here for some more facts. 2 centuries later, all of Edom was driven out of Mount Seir. The Edomites were driven from Petra westward by the Nabateans in 312 BC, and before the middle of the 2nd century BC, they were occupying not only southern Judah, but also Hebron in the country to its north as far as Beth-zur. That's 1 Maccabees 4:29, 5:65. This is a citation from Who is Esau Edom by Charles A. Wiseman, page 7, citing John D. Davis, A Dictionary of the Bible, 1934, page 332. Now, we'll say, just kind of backtracking a little bit, that in Jeremiah 40, we do have a depiction of this Edomite Jew intermixing, put the Jew in exclamation points, and this would be something of a corroboration for our hypothesis in regard to the movement toward Jerusalem. And then 2 centuries later, we have this mass movement west and north. Now, it should be recalled also, I think, this Judah-Sura line, at that point in time, it represented, after the 4th generation from Abraham, some 151st of the people known as Israel. And this group is, of course, a mixed group, and therefore outside of the children of the promise inheritance. The Maccabean family had ruled Judea from 166 to 37 BC, and under Judah Maccabee, 1 Maccabee 5:3, recaptured the city of Hebron from the Edomites in 164 BC. A decisive change in the relations between the two factions took place when Judah Maccabee's son, John Hyrcanus, 109 BC, confronted the Edomites. John Hyrcanus conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism. Joseph Antiquities 13:9-1. Thenceforth, the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people. Thus, at this juncture of time, the Edomites were incorporated with the Jewish nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. Mark 3:8, Ptolemy, Geography, verse 16. Now, this is a citation from Who is Esau Edom by Mr. Charles A. Wiseman, page 7, citing both the Encyclopedia Judaica, volume 6, 1971, page 378, and the New Standard Jewish Encyclopedia, 1977, page 589. Furthermore, the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 5, 1904, page 41. Now, thus we find that 100 years before the advent of Christ the Messiah, we had a unified southern Palestine, Judea, occupying the southern part of Palestine, and the inhabitants were, for the most part, Maccabean and Edomites, with really a fairly large admixture of various Canaanite peoples, and this is such a situation that I believe in Mark that the area that dominated by the Edomites was still called Idumea. We do know that King Herod was a half. It wasn't an Edomite. His wife was a Maccabean, and this is also, just as an aside, kind of an interesting rationale for the slaughter of the Israelite babes 2 years and younger in Bethlehem, because Herod was not, according to the flesh, an Israelite, and therefore when he gave the order to kill these children, he was not killing his own people, he was killing somebody else's. And there's always a tendency to be a little bit less concerned in such situations. But let's pursue this a little further now. During Titus's siege of Jerusalem, 66 to 70 AD, the Edomites participated in its defense against the Romans. Immediately before the siege of Jerusalem, 20,000 Idumeans appeared before Jerusalem to fight in behalf of the zealots who were besieged in the temple. More than 1 million inhabitants of Judea died, and 97,000 were taken captive. An unknown number had fled either before or during the siege. This is a citation from Who is Esau Edom by Mr. Charles A. Wiseman, pages 7 and 8, in citing the Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 5, 1904, page 41. Now, people, to my knowledge, this is the last mention of Edom or Edomite, at least in the Bible. The term ceases to exist, it would seem. And yet we know from prophecy that Edom in the last days would be an adversary of Israel and a troubler of Israel. Please remember the name Achar, the troubler of Israel, through the Judah-Sura line, and all these lines gathering together and merging in and about Jerusalem. Well, the only people on the face of the earth that we know for sure possess the blood of Edom would be the Jews of portions of the Jews within Judaism, and presumably the Sephardic group would be the most abundantly endowed. However, this particular group also happens, it seems to be the smallest group in regard to Jewry. We do have a breakdown of something like 90 to 95% of the total Jewish population as being Ashkenazim, or Eastern Jew, and only something like 5% or less being Sephardic. So this is itself interesting. We also have some interesting information in regard to the genetic input. The bloodline of Jewry was further adulterated when they absorbed the Idumeans, who were of Edom or Esau. According to Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 13, Chapter 9, Paragraph 1, and Book 15, Chapter 7, Paragraph 9, John Hyrcanus subjected them between 130 and 120 BC and compelled them to accept Judaism as a religion. From that day on, they were absorbed into the so-called Jewish race. This would mean that they were fully assimilated into the Jewish society in Judea at the time of Christ, and would be a people of mixed seed, not pure Israelites, and certainly not children of the promise. This is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, page 33. Now you may ask, what are the implications in all this? Well, let's consider that. The majority of any remaining Israelites left Palestine within 3 years after Christ was crucified because of the persecution. Since most people of the house of Judah went into Assyrian captivity and never returned to Jerusalem, it can be said that all of those from the tribe of Judah are not Jews. However, it can be stated that some persons from the tribe of Judah became Jews. This does not mean that all the people in Judea at the time of Christ were of the mixed races, as there were certainly some who had kept their lineage pure, as did Noah, who was perfect in his generations, Genesis 6:9. But most of the population of Judea was a mixed breed of people known as Jews. However, it can be concluded that the land, the government, economics, and the temple worship was in control of the descendants of Esau, Canaan, and the Shelah branch of Judah, whom we refer to as Judah-Jerusalem, or the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Isaiah 8:14, Jeremiah 11:2, 19:13, and see Ezra 9 for a longer list. By the time of Christ, the positions of chief priests and elders in Jerusalem were occupied by these inhabitants of Jerusalem who are not Israelites, but were called Jews. Now this is a citation from Who Are the Pharisees and the Jews? Are They Israel? A study by Pastor Bob Hallstrom, page 34. Now, according to Pastor Hallstrom's thinking, it is these people who rejected Christ, not the 12 tribes of Israel per se, not the certainly not the house of Israel. I don't say, considering how corrupt they seem to be, that they wouldn't have, but they were far removed, so they couldn't have. The option was not there. plus the 200,150 of the kingdom of Judah, which had been taken into Assyrian captivity with the house of Israel, were also out of the picture. And most of the remaining Judahites that were taken to Babylonian captivity seemed content to stay there. As we noted, even Daniel refused to return. So that when Ezra and Nehemiah came back, they were people who had a certain authority because they were coming back at the let of the king of Babylon, and they had authority to rebuild the wall and so forth like that. But they were going to a place that already had a government, that already had a religious structure, that already had a large population, and into which they became a minority. And we know that right off the reel, it did not take long before the Israelites who had returned, the Judahites with Ezra and Nehemiah, began to take wives of the locals and to give their daughters for marriage also, bringing great grief to Ezra and Nehemiah, and an attempt was made to halt this. But this trend of blending seems to be fairly strong, and we believe that by the time Christ appeared, the population of Israelites, the Judahites, with a reasonably pure lineage was relatively small. And therefore, Christ found himself in a tough spot here because he was amongst people who were patterned to be enemies, the Edomites and so forth. Now, we also believe that it's entirely possible that a line of Amalek lives within Jewry also. Well, that's it, folks. We're out of time again. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I appreciate your tuning in, and I hope to see you again next time.